certainly on a more personal level that could not have been disclosed then. This was a film that was dear to his heart because it was a way that he could, and by subterfuge at least, bring out the fact that gay people could be great actors, gay people could be human beings, and gay people should not have to lead double lives. Bogart, by the way, never actually publicly acknowledged his homosexuality by the time he died in the mid-'80s, but by that point, through his memoirs, through his relationships, and through his friends, it was generally known. But then again, that just says something about Bogart having one foot in the old society and one foot in the new society, that he felt compelled, even as he made this film about homosexuality and the theme of blackmail, which is the key to the movie, that he couldn't say, you know what, I made this great film, and by the way, I'm gay. That wasn't yet acceptable in British society, nor for that matter in American society. Now, the film, as you will see, focuses very much on the concept of blackmail. Blackmail is one of the most common themes in British film. Hitchcock made a film called Blackmail, and in particular, the resonance of the film is deeply connected to the homosexual culture. Why? Well, one of the canards that haunted the Cold War on both sides of the Atlantic was that homosexuals were security risks because they could be blackmailed and therefore would be easy prey for the Soviet spies. And similarly, because of this tabloid culture that you see hinted at, and of course we still have this tabloid culture in England, see Rupert Murdoch, the notion of the vulnerability of a public figure to blackmail, and that he would compromise his vote or he would be steered in a certain direction as an attorney because of the possibility of exposure, was, I would say, paramount to the culture. Britain, in particular, had witnessed a series of Cambridge-educated upper-middle-class spies who had defected to the Russians in the late 1940s and the early 1950s, the Burgess scandals. And it turned out that all these guys were gay, so that added fuel to the flame that, if you put a person who is homosexual, or secretly homosexual, in a position of authority and power, it's likely that they will be compromised, and maybe they went over there because the Russians had made them double agents, or instead of their sincere belief in communism. So you can see how permeable the notion of blackmail was in the culture. Now, what's also interesting about this film, in addition to the main focus on the character of the barrister Farr, it really gives you a kaleidoscopic view of homosexual culture in England in the late 50s. It's all filmed on location, mostly outside the studios, with a sort of film noir technique, in the sense that most of the, many of these things are at night. There is the suggestion of doom. There is the idea of double cross. All of these techniques were at once reifying the notion of the otherness of the gay world, but also playing into the genre entertainment factor that would allow people in the audience to identify with the drama of the film. 2 or 3 years before he did this, parenthetically, Dearden had made a film called Sapphire, which dealt with a mixed race girl who had been killed, and it was also a police detective, a thriller type of thing. And so Dearden was very much aware that he did not want to make a preachy film. He felt very strongly about the subject, but in the end, he saw himself as a craftsman and as a director who was there to entertain. But having said that, the sympathetic quality that he gives to the various subsidiary characters who are being blackmailed, a series of various gay figures of various ages and occupations, certainly would have resonated with the audience. In fact, if you read the literature on it, many gay men who were closeted in 1961 said when they saw this film, going into the film without much of a recognition of the specific story, they were astounded. This was like a film for them. For the first time on the screen, they had seen themselves as sympathetic characters. And in that way, by the way, it's interesting. You'll see in the film, there's a very interesting character who is a very well-known stage actor who is being blackmailed. And the actor who plays him, a very distinguished character named Dennis Price, very effective performance, is or was in real life at the time of this film, roughly within a year or so, had left his wife and kids and become openly gay, as it were. So one can only imagine what was going through the minds of these actors at the time that the film was being made, where they had these real lives which so much mirrored the characters in the film. Now, some people, particularly there's a British film critic named David Thompson, very well-known film critic, after the fact have criticized the film for making the main character betwixt and between. That is, he has both homosexual urges, but a beautiful wife at the same time. And they argue that this somehow is a cop-out. Well, frankly, that's ridiculous. First of all, it gives complexity to the character. But beyond that, you know, the greatest mistake of criticism of films is the idea of presentism. Films, particularly of this nature, have to be seen within the context of when they're made. So, when you watch this film, don't think of it in terms of our current entertainment culture and society, where gay characters are typical in comedic situations on television. It's acceptable to make films and TV shows about gays in all different types of class settings, and good characters, bad characters, evil, nice. That wasn't the world of the culture of 1961. So this film was on the precipice of the opening of the 60s culture, but I would still argue ahead of its time, because, getting back to my point about the Wolfenden report, it wasn't until the mid-60s that the report was finally approved. And the more discerning critics, maybe myself included, would suggest to you that it aided the debate between the contending forces in English society, which was known, by the way, as the Hart-Devlin debate. And that mirrors almost precisely the parameters of this film, in the sense that the debate was framed in England, much more sophisticated here, by the way,